Hello guys, thank you here, and this is the Asuma Toki build. So before we begin, I would like to remind you guys, as usual, to help support my channel by subscribing, and hitting the notification bell for more stuff like this. And also leaving a comment in the comment section down below if you have any questions or concerns. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started. So for our mobility module, we'll be using the drag. For our headset module, we'll be using the drag again. For our hanger module, we'll be using the tropions. For the thruster modules, we'll be using the valves, pardon me. For utility module, we'll be using the Faluracons. For our first primary arms, we'll be using the Yolgans 2. For our second primary arm, we'll be using the Creo. For our rear arms, we'll be using the Lin Golem 12, and for our other rear arm, we'll be using the Femt. And if you're wondering what color values I'm using the default color values for the skin color, these values for the main body color, these values for the sub body color, these values for the sub body color 2, these by sub body color for the sub body color 3, these values for the hair color, these values for the hair gradient, these values for the hair highlights, these values for the optional parts, and these values for the eye color. So that's essentially everything I'm using for my humanoid body here. And before I forget, we're using the van for our face, the ALH for our back hair, the YAM for our front hair, and the Special Guardian combat uniform for our body. And if you're wondering what we're using for our the colors for our mobility module, we're using these values for our main, these values for our sub, these values for our inner, and these values for our glow. And as for the rest of our frame, using these values for our main, these values for our sub, these values for our inner, and these values for our glow. This should be uniform for just about the rest of our modules, except for our mobility module. That's a bit of a different color. As for our primary arms, we're using this for our, or these values for our main, these values for our sub, these values for our inner, and these values for our glow. And as for our rear arms, we're using these values for our main, these values for our sub, these values for our inner, and these values for our glow. So, anywho, I've been trying to base this model off of, this loadout off of Asuma Toki's Abiyesha, however you pronounce it. So, yeah. I've actually going through a lot of frame resources, or sorry, not frame resources, but references for Toki's frames, and yeah, a lot of her stuff is a bit more smoother than this, but this is the best I can do. I could try to replace the drag mobility module for the fold mobility module, as you can see here, for something a little bit more closer to Toki's look. But I decided not to go for this because, it's a little bit too thick for what I was looking at. But anywho, yeah, I decided to just go for the drag because I feel like this is a little bit more closer to what Toki is using. Plus, it's a little bit more weight efficient, so I decided to go for that. As for her rear arms, I decided to take some artistic liberties, but a little bit more liberties with my loadout. If anything, I was thinking about going with dual femps, but I decided not to because, I feel like dual femps is a little bit overkill, and I decided just go for one femp and just go for the Lin Golem on the other. Just go with that. I've also noticed that Toki also uses miniguns on her, both her arms. Unfortunately, we don't really have anything in terms of dual wielding outside of handguns, but I decided to just go ahead and load up the Yolgans for this particular build. And since she does uses, well, she does use the bullpup, I decided to go with the Creo. Unfortunately, we don't have a G11 analog in this game, so I decided to just go with what I can work with. So yeah, I decided to just go with the Creo in that regards. And yeah, as for like everything else, particularly the hanger, I'm having trouble trying to actually find a good hanger for Toki, so I decided to just go with the Tropion since this is probably about as close as I can get. Her hanger module is quite big. In fact, it's so big that it actually encompasses her shoulders more or less. But yeah, this part like right next to the frame, this is a bit similar to what Toki uses, like right behind her, but well, it's not quite it. But again, I was trying to work with what I got. But as for like everything else, yeah, I wasn't really sure if like what thrusters Toki was using in Blue Archive, or if he was using thrusters. So I decided to go ahead and go with the valves, since the valves kind of like stay out of the way. Also, I decided to go with the power cut too, because I don't think she actually has a utility module on herself. So yeah, I decided to work with well, what I was able to see. So yeah, if anything, I don't think Toki actually has a thruster or a utility module on her frame. So if anything, her frame is a bit, well, how you say, antiquated compared to what we're using here. Like, I could try to take some of these off, but well, I wasn't able to, so I kind of just go ahead and work with what we got. As for our headset, I was thinking of using the Tropions, but then I decided, nah, you know what? Why not just run the drag? Why not just run the drag? It's even closer to Toki's headset as well, so might as well go with that. But anywho, might as well go ahead and try to take this out for a spin. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we are in the upturned forest. So anywho, yeah, this build is a bit slow, but then again, I was trying to base this build off of the actual Abiesha, and the Abiesha is pretty slow in its own right. But the flip side, it's quite powerful, as you can see here, and a bit tanky as well. Not too tanky. If anything, this build might have trouble with thermal weaponry, but not too much trouble. If anything, it's actually surprisingly well balanced for what it is. Yeah, I did decide to take some liberties with the rear guns. If anything, it might be a better idea just to run dual temps, but I decided not to go for that, and that guy's gone. But anywho. But yeah, again, this build is kind of slow, and also it eats up quite a bit of ammo, so yeah, be very careful about that. You have options to work with, fortunately. If you're dealing with like particularly fast enemies, you can always pop out the Creo and use that to deal with them. As such. And if you're dealing with shielded enemies, you always have the Femp to actually bust through their shields if needed. But anywho. But yeah, if there's only one weak point with this frame, it's mostly going to be like the back, well, rear. If anything, this build doesn't have very good rear defenses. Thermal, that is. But for physical defense, it tends to do pretty well in that regards. Let's see here. But, and also, this build kind of has a bit of limited range with its lock-on, so that's one thing to be careful of. But when it comes to computing, it's not too bad, as long as you remember to actually switch your Creo before actually locking onto your opponent. And the only reason why is if you're locking on with something like the Yolgant, it'll take a long time for you to lock onto an enemy, but if you use something like the Creo, it won't take too long. And not to mention, again, when you're locked onto an enemy, you're locked onto an enemy. I'll let you like break contact with them. As such. Also, I should probably mention this, but yeah, this build is also very EP hungry as well, so yeah, be careful about boosting around and all that. If anything, it might be a good idea just to run normally. As so. Like, don't go like two-hand with your EP unless you're like trying to move around, but do try to well, slow down and just walk for a little bit. actually conserve your EP. But yeah, also decided to go for the power guns because, again, I didn't know if Toki actually uses a utility modules. If anything, I was thinking about going for the valve as the utility modules, but then I realized, yeah, this build is very EP hungry, so it might be a good idea just to run power guns in that regard, But yeah, if anything, this build is actually pretty well rounded. By the way, I'm decided to just stick with my old guns because I'm very close to these enemies and might as well just shoot them. For the heck of it. But anywho, I suppose we can go on for a little bit longer. Yeah. Also, this build isn't quite as mobile, very much like the Yabasha. If anything, it does have its limitations in terms of mobility. If anything, it's essentially the opposite of the Neru build. Essentially, but at the same time, it's still fairly usable as long as you know what you're doing. Yeah. If anything, I think this build strength is basically in its tankiness, and not so much in terms of mobility, which in some hands might be a problem for some of you, but on the other hand, it's not too big of a deal. You're particularly skilled with this game. Let's see how. Actually, no, this is a good time to use the Lin Golem. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I decided to the Lin Golem on this, because the Lin Golem is actually pretty good with this build. Look at that! I took a good quarter of his health. Compare that to the Femp, which only takes like a good chunk of their health. Here I can just mow this guy down for the heck of it. And let's go ahead and take care of this too. So anyways, yeah, this build is pretty good. A little bit fun to play. But then again, I feel like all builds are pretty fun to play. That is until you start fighting nymphs. Once you start doing that, well, it's usually the test to see if your build is actually good or not. As for this build, I don't particularly think it's all that good. But at the same time, that doesn't matter because it's fun to play. And yeah, now it's a good time to actually hop off this. Ain't up that much, but then again, it's the power guns. That's why you run the power guns, because it's pretty easy going on the BP. But anywho, I still don't know what's like around here or what this place is for. I think this is like one of the unused areas in the game. I think you're supposed to actually meet someone here, but alas, you don't. Now I think about it, if you decide to, I don't know, help Hati actually run away and she gets chased off by Inquisitors, does she show up over here or something? I don't know. But anywho, I think we've gone on long enough here. I think I showed off everything I wanted to show off with the build, and if I miss anything, I'll probably leave it in the comments down below. And by the way, again, if you guys want to help support the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you have any questions or concerns about this build, feel free to leave it in the comment sections down below. So I think we'll call it quits for this episode, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Bye!